Hello and welcome to fragworld.org, a gaming site for PC gamers, clans, and guilds. Today we have another in our video podcast series about Star Wars The Old Republic, an MMO due out in 2011. It's made by Bioware, the makers of Knights of the Old Republic and countless other great RPGs. Today we have an interview with 4 of their staff, and let's go ahead and get started with an introduction from each person.
My name is Daniel Erickson. I'm the writing director for Bioware Austin and the lead writer for The Old Republic.
Hi, I'm James Ohlen. I'm the game director on Star Wars The Old Republic. My name is Cory Butler. I'm an associate live producer with Bioware Austin. It's a pretty wide range of responsibilities. My primary responsibility is serve as the liaison between Bioware and LucasArts Lucasfilm. So I make sure that they're abreast of all the stuff in the game and their licensing is seen and approved it. And then part of the live responsibilities are we manage the external testing program, we make sure the game is ready for launch, and then once we're live, we'll run that service.
My name is Hall Hood. I am a senior writer at Bioware Austin. I am the primary writer of the Jedi Knight class for Star Wars The Old Republic. I'm the co-writer of the Smuggler class, and I wrote the Taral 5 flashpoint that people are playing at PAX here today.
Tell us a little bit about how the name for the Jedi Wizard came about. Whose idea was that?
Well, actually, that was a long story, because originally it was the Jedi Consular, and then it became the Jedi Wizard, and then it became the Jedi Consular game, and then we added the Jedi Wizard as an advanced class in the Jedi Consular, and then people didn't like that, so then we decided to have the contest to rename the Jedi Wizard advanced class. But who came up with it originally? It was there were some discussions about coming up with class names that people would understand, that the non-Star Wars hardcore fans would understand. And Wizard and Sorcerer were names that were brought up because Obi-Wan uses the name Wizard, or he's referred to as that crazy old wizard. And in the first Star Wars movie, Darth Vader, referred to as using those sorcerer's ways. So we thought, hey, Wizard and Sorcerer, we can use those because they're mentioned in the very first Star Wars movie. But after we got feedback on it, it was like, I guess players don't like that. And we weren't exactly attached to the name, so we went back to the Knights of the Old Republic names that we'd used, such as Jedi Consular.
I think that has been around from the get-go, and then based on the feedback we were getting from you guys and the fans, we put it up to a vote to see what people wanted to call the Wizard class.
The Jedi Wizard was, oh my god, whose idea was it? I think it just went up there on the, we had the Jedi Knight, and the funny thing is, Knight is okay, but Wizard isn't okay. I mean, they're pretty much the same, little fantasy, so we just kind of stuck them up there. I don't think anybody liked it. We had a lot of arguments about that one really early. But a lot of the time when you're really early, you're just like, all right, it's fine, just keep going. Names are easy to change.
It's funny. The genesis of that name, where that name came from, was the original Star Wars movie. That old man's just a crazy old wizard, right? I mean, that's how Uncle Owen described Ben Kenobi, and so that's where we sort of came at it from as, well, okay, let's try that out and see, how that works. But then, once the fan feedback, came back, it's like, wow, we really don't like this name. We're like, okay, we'll go ahead and what do you think of this? And we tried some other options out there. Personally, I never had a problem with Jedi Wizard. It may be, I understand why people do have a problem with it, though. I mean, it sounds maybe a little too fantasy for Star Wars, and that's perfectly all right.
It's pretty cool that you listen to community. A lot of game companies don't do that.
We're very, we care very much about our community, and we try to be as responsive as we can to community feedback and to let people know that, yes, their opinions matter.
So are there differences in doing an MMO as opposed to a single-player RPG? What's it like?
Technical death hurdle. So scripting a Bioware RPG is one of the most difficult design things in the entire industry. Doing it in a multiplayer space is a nightmare. This was just the biggest, craziest thing we could have ever bit off, and there's no way we could have done it had we not already done Mass Effect, had we not already done Dragon Age. And even then, the complexities of the things you have to think about, not just the MMO part, which is huge, but even just multiplayer, just having the different classes. we've always said your different classes didn't really matter too much, like in a Baldur's Gate or something like that. You'd have a little bit, but really we don't care if you're a barbarian or whatever for most of the plot. In this one, the guy walks up to you and is like, hey, you know, why don't you do what I say, blah, 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 except I'm a Sith Lord. So no. So we have to change the whole way he addresses you. We have to change the whole plot, and it still has to work for the bounty hunter. And then we have to worry about the fact there's 200 other people in the area trying to do the same stuff. Just endlessly complex.
Tons of differences. That's a multiplayer game that's far more complex. The fact that you're dealing with multiplayer situations means you have to think about every single design decision, you know, with that lens. The fact that, you know, you have a client and a server, and you have to be worried about security all the time. You have to worry about all sorts of things. It makes design a lot more difficult. Every single design decision has a lot more complexity that you have to think about. It also means that test plans have to be much more detailed because there's so many things that players can do in a multiplayer situation that they can't do in a single player situation. So it's a lot more challenging. I would say that an online RPG is 2 or 3 times as challenging as a single player RPG, but it's fun having a challenge.
Well, you always have to make sure that you're tracking the fact that, you know, it is a multiplayer game. This is a game where players may have their individual class stories, but there's going to be a lot of exciting group-based content that they can also pick up along the way. And one of the things that you have to make sure of, just like in any game ultimately, but you want to make sure that all of the fiction is cohesive, that everything fits together. You don't want to have a group-based quest that directly contradicts what's going on in a class plot. Everything has to work together. All the plots have to make sense and work together.
Knights of the Old Republic was a great game. Are there a lot of references and ties into that one and the second one?
There are definite things that, you know, are in your face as far as like, hey, we're going to answer these questions. But all of them have to exist in such a way that they're interesting for people who didn't play it. Right? We don't just want the fans of KOTOR 1 and KOTOR 2 to play this game. A lot of the people who are in our, you know, demographic for a T game weren't really old enough to play KOTOR 1 and KOTOR 2. Some people weren't around, some people weren't in the game. You know, we want everybody who's a Star Wars fan, everybody who's an RPG fan to be able to come here, everybody who's an MMO fan, which means, yeah, we've got a lot of influence there. There's a lot of stuff, not just for KOTOR 1 and 2, but from the whole EU that's there if you're looking for it. And if you want to have those answers, but if you don't know any of it, it'll still be cool. You just won't relate it back.
Fan of both of those games. I played them a lot. I love the lore that was established in KOTOR 1 and 2. So yes, basically every chance that I got while writing for this game, I tried to work in some sort of payoff or reference to something that was introduced in those first 2 games. Yes.
Did the first KOTOR get a little bit more attention since it's a Bioware product?
Well, like I said, I'm a fan of both games, and a lot of the developers on our team are fans of both games. So, you know, obviously, you know, because it's a Bioware game, we tend to be a little more focused on the lore that we established, but we're certainly not ignoring the lore that was established in Knights of the Republic 2. There's some good stuff in there, and we're definitely not ignoring it.
You know, that Force Ghost in Taral 5 looked a little familiar. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
No, I cannot. Okay. You know, the reality is we brought the Taral 5 flashpoint for people to play, but we did have to edit some of the story moments from it before we let people play it because we didn't want there to be any kind of spoilers. You know, we want to keep the game as pure as possible for people when they start playing it on launch day.
So what percentage of the flashpoint are we seeing here today?
I can't give you an exact percentage, but I wrote the whole thing, so I know that you really only got to see a little bit of it. There's so much more to experience. It's really big. It's incredibly epic.
So the Taral 5's flashpoint we're seeing here today at PAX, was that a special build made just for this event?
No, that's not correct. It's a build that's part of our normal process. We just handpicked this content because we thought it was fun and exciting, and we wanted to get people teamed up and working together.
I do assume you had to take a couple things away from the story and the difficulty.
Oh yeah, I mean we did. We didn't want to give any spoilers away, and we also we tweaked the difficulty a little bit to make sure that it was going to be a challenging and yet rewarding experience for everybody.
So that Force Ghost, can you tell us anything about her?
No, she's, you know, the whole plot there is definitely an unusual one. It's unusual to have somebody who is strong enough to present themselves out to non-Force users. That whole plot there is obviously going towards some extremely important people, but we're not going to talk about it. That's why it's in there.
So, we heard a rumor that there's more content in the Old Republic MMO than in all other Bioware games combined.
I would guess so, because we've probably done more since then. The last time I estimated, I think we've got about 50 to 60 man-years of writing in the game.
So how is it working with the folks over at LucasArts?
It's great working with those guys. I mean, it's a very collaborative process. So, I mean, you know, they get feedback on pretty much everything, and we work really closely together. It's kind of a dream job, really, to get that sort of insight into their process.
So we hear the level cap is 50. Around how long will it take someone to reach that level?
The thing is, those estimates are always, all they do is set you up for hilarity. You may remember a first big expansion for a game came out, and they said, oh, I think it'll take 6 weeks for anyone to beat it. So then one guild decided they had to do it, and the guy beat it in 72 hours. Like, it means nothing. I will say it is the average time to complete Chapter 1. And every class has a trilogy. Every class has 3, not a 3-act structure, like 3 full stories that end. The average time in our testing to complete Chapter 1 is far larger than the average time of KOTOR.